let's go ahead and let's spawn our explosion here. So in order to do this, we need to go and add in, for example, a lot of code actually. Explosion emitter, okay? Path, okay? Explosion emitter, explosion emitter path. Make that equal to, and this is where things get a little bit crazy, but we're going to say ns bundle dot main bundle dot path for resource. And what resource is that going to be? Now I'm going to say particle spark of type SKS. What just happened here? All right, this is extremely important. See this particle spark right here? I'll zoom in. You have to spell this exactly the way it is. And if you don't do that, if yours is different, then you have to spell it the way that you did it in your code here. So it's particle, I'm just going to make sure. And the other thing you can do is you can literally copy this and paste it in here and just delete the SKS. There's no shame in taking a few extra seconds to make that work. So what we've done is we have the path. So you know how when you go to a website, let's say mammothinteractive.com, well, that is the address for the website. This is the address for the particle spark. Okay. Then we're going to say let explosion is equal to ns keyed, okay, ns keyed unarchiver. Okay, dot unarchive object with data or with file, and the path here is going to be explosion emitter path as, or as string as sk emitter node. Okay, now what's interesting about this is that we now have our we've now set up our explosion here. Okay, so if we look at this, we need to just take a look, and it says we need to insert, of course, a exclamation point. All right, so we got our explosion here. Then we're going to have to give it a position. We're going to say explosion dot position is equal to, and we're going to say that this is going to be the position of the enemy here. So let's call this enemy temp, and we'll make that equal to an sk sprite node. All right, and this will come back in a second. We'll say this is enemy temp dot position dot x, and of course this needs to be in a CG point, by the way. CG point is going to be enemy temp dot position dot x and enemy temp dot position dot y. Okay, so what we're going to do is when we spawn the explosion, we're going to pass in our variable to make this work. So we're going to say explosion dot z position. We want this to be in the background, is equal to, actually we do want this to be kind of in the foreground. So we'll say it's equal to 1. And we also going to say explosion dot target node is equal to self. Okay. And then we're going to go to self dot add child explosion, and then we're going to add in let's take a look at that here. We're going to go to self dot add child explosion, and you don't need the exclamation point there, but then we need to delete the explosion. So let's add in a function. We'll call this delete explosion or remove explosion might be a better way. Remove explosion, and we'll call this after. We'll say remove explosion. And what we'll do it after because we need to wait for a second here. We're going to say let wait is equal to skaction.wait for duration, and we'll give it maybe a 0.5 seconds. Then we're going to go to let, we'll call this remove. All right, and we're going to say is equal to sk action dot remove, or sk action dot run block, and we'll say, and we could put this in its own function, but since we declared this here, let's put everything within its own function here. So we'll say explosion dot remove from parent, and then we're going to add in a sequence, or we're going to go to self dot run action sk action dot sequence, and we're going to say wait, then remove. Okay. We can say remove explosion just to be a little bit more, remove explosion to be a little bit more precise. Wow. So let's go back to our enemy projectile here. And what we need to do is we need to go and we need to add it in, so that the enemy will spawn the explosion here. And remember, this is the enemy projectile collision here. Okay, and we will spawn the explosion actually in the in this area here where we have this here, and we'll spawn the explosion before. So we'll say spawn explosion and enemy temp here. We're going to say first body dot node as sk sprite node. Now you're wondering, well, are we going to spawn this at the projectile or are we going to spawn it on the player? At this point, they're actually pretty much the same. So for the most part, it won't really matter. All right. So this concludes the tutorial.